Are we really willing to say that justice is a lie? To say that mercy, to say that love, to say that duty, to say these things are lies, that they're fantasies? Because if we say that justice is a lie, we also have to say that injustice is a lie. If justice, if there is no right way to do things, then there is no wrong way to do things. There's a story called Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. It has this excerpt that I've seen multiple times on social media in these posts, and I'm going to read it to you and tell you what I've kind of seen. It says, this is a girl named Susan, and she's talking to Death, okay? And so it goes, "All right," said Susan, "I'm not stupid. You're saying humans need fantasies to make life bearable. Really?" This is Death. "As if it were some kind of pink pill? No, no. Humans need fantasy to be human, to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape. Tooth fairies? Hogfathers? Little? Yes, yes. As a practice, you have to start out learning to believe little lies so that we can believe the big ones? Yes. Justice, mercy, duty, that sort of thing. They're not the same at all. You think so? Then take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve and show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet," Death waves a hand, "and yet you act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there's some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged." "Yes, but people have got to believe that, or what's the point?" "My point exactly." And then so I've seen this, this posted in this excerpt, and then the idea, right, is that this is beautiful. Death is so wise. He's revealing that, in the same way that we believe in tooth fairies or Hogfather, which is kind of like a Santa Claus type figure. The same way we believe these little things, it builds up our belief for these bigger things like justice and mercy and duty that are equally as false, equally as much of a lie as the tooth fairy or Santa Claus or Hogfather. But we need them in order to be human, right? He says in order to be where the falling angel meets the rising ape, right? So to have some kind of story purpose in our lives, we have to have these little lies. And I think it's interesting because I do think that some of these things are what brings purpose to our lives. But I think that to say that they're fantasies, I think it's a leap, right? And it's funny to me that people are okay with posting this and they act like it's so beautiful and it's so true, but really I think it's so tragic, right? And it's all based on this idea, right, where he says, grind the universe down and show me one atom or one molecule of justice or mercy. So essentially the idea is, right, if I can't see it materially, then it isn't real. And one thing that's interesting to me about that is that it's an assumption about the universe. It's an assumption about what's true and what's real. The assumption is that unless there's a material element to it, it isn't real. Or that everything that seems to have a metaphysical element, ethics, justice, mercy, love, duty, these things, that they can all be boiled down to some merely material thing. And while we can obviously see material correlations, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is merely material or that there's nothing metaphysical going on. It doesn't prove to us that the sum isn't greater than the parts, right? And so it's just interesting to me because we are making an assumption. If we look at the world this way, we're making an assumption. And I think that the issue with it, right, is that there's a lot of good that can be gained by looking at things empirically, right? By making these observations, the scientific method. Obviously, we've had the medical advancements that we've had, the technological advancements that we've had because of looking at the world this way. And that's notable, right? That's good. But what's also interesting is at the same time that we've had these medical advances, these technological advances, we've had advances in, kind of the standard of living, so to speak, right? The question would be, have we had the same types of advances spiritually, right, or morally, right? You could look at human flourishing strictly materially and say, economically, most people in the world are in a better place. We have a longer life expectancy. Technologically, we're better. And all those are good things. Then you can look and see, well, anxiety is on the rise, depression is on the rise, nihilism is on the rise, hopelessness is on the rise. And so it's interesting to me that there's a correlation there. I'm not, causation doesn't mean correlation, but it is interesting to me. And does some of that boil down to this idea that we view things like justice and mercy and duty as relative, as not real, as fantasy, right? As lies. And so one of my questions is, are we really willing to say that justice is a lie? To say that mercy, to say that love, to say that duty, to say these things are lies, that they're fantasies? Because if we say that justice is a lie, we also have to say that injustice is a lie. If justice, if there is no right way to do things, then there is no wrong way to do things. And we can say, like, we don't like that. We would prefer it another way, but we can't say, like, you ought not to do that. And it's really funny because I think in our culture right now, Western culture, America specifically, there's a whole lot of saying you ought not to do that. You shouldn't treat people that way. You shouldn't call people those things. You should speak in a certain way. You should act in a certain way. And meanwhile, behind all of that, we somehow at the same time hold this belief that there is no right, there is no wrong. Moral relativism is actually the way to go because there can be no way to know what is really right, or there is no thing that's really right. And and I honestly believe that it's a wrong assumption. I believe that the reason that nobody lives like injustice is fake is because injustice isn't fake. The reason nobody lives like justice is a fantasy is because it's not. The reason that we live as if there is a real right and a real wrong, and when somebody oppresses somebody else or somebody does something that culturally, even socially, societally, that we say is wrong, even if that thing is somehow a social norm, I think that the reason that we don't live as if it's fake, as if it's false, is because it's pointing us to a reality that there is a real right and there is a real wrong. And even if we haven't gotten all the way there yet, that we haven't, say, uncovered the real moral truths of the universe, which, you can say that, I suppose. I think that it still is pointing us in the direction that the idea that there is real right and there is real wrong, that ethics really exist and morality really exists, that there is metaphysical reality in the universe. I think that we act like it's true because it is true. And I think to reduce it down, to boil it down and say, if you can't find the physical aspect, the material aspect, then it's just fantasy. We've just made it up. I think we're missing out on something there. And I think that you can observe through history, right? It's really a recent in the last couple hundred years development, we'll say, in human history, that we don't view the world metaphysically or transcendentally, right? That we think that everything is immanent, everything is material. I'm going to be doing a book blurb on a book called I forget what it's called, How Not to Be Secular, or it's a smaller book on the secular age by Charles Taylor, and it kind of talks about this, but it's a newer development in human history that everything is immanent, and it's because of the Enlightenment. It's because of this kind of empiricism. We have to view everything empirically, and again, I think the Enlightenment obviously brought a lot of benefits to us, but I don't think that that's the end, full stop. I think that there's more going on, and I think that when you look and you say, well, justice is fake, mercy is fake, I think the reason that doesn't sit well, and that maybe we can talk about it philosophically, but we can't live it out, is there's a reason for that. And I think the reason, even if we're not all the way there yet, we don't understand it all the way yet, but I think this is where religion does come in and spirituality does come in and trying to serve God does come in, is that I think there's something else to existence that is real. It's a real part of it. It's a real reflection of the universe that we live in, that there is actually such a thing as metaphysical reality. And so, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to agree with me. But I think it's worth thinking about, are we okay with saying that justice, mercy, right, wrong, love, it's actually all just fantasy. It's all just a lie. And I can't tell you, and you can't tell me what to believe in. There is no standard. I think it's wrong. I think it's a wrong assumption. I think that there is some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged. And I don't think that rightness is found in you or I. I think we can find that rightness, but I don't think it's defined by us. I think it's found in God. But obviously, that's moving beyond the scope of just the idea. And I'm not necessarily trying to do that. I'm just trying to say maybe it's worth thinking about a little bit. So anyways, if you tracked with me along this far and you haven't, thrown your phone through your computer screen or something like that, well, I appreciate it. I'd love to hear from you. Comment, what do you think? Do you think we should just write it off? Do you think it's okay? Do you think that saying that it's a human construct and then just going with that, do you think that actually gets us there? Or not, I'd love to hear from you, hear your thoughts, and if you like this kind of content, do me a favor, just like and subscribe. I'd love to have you follow along with me. I'm hoping to do more stuff like this. So hey, thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time.